When we talk about staying strong in any situation, it all begins with the mind. Everything we experience, every challenge, every setback, every victory passes through the filter of our mindset first. That means if we want to stay strong when life tests us, we have to start by mastering the way we think. Now, this doesn't mean pretending to be positive or the denying the difficulty of what we're going through. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about building a mental framework that allows us to face discomfort head on without crumbling under its weight. The brain is constantly scanning our environment for threats. Emotional, physical, social, that's a survival mechanism. But what we can do is train our minds not to overreact or spiral when things get hard. It's about developing resilience, and that starts with self-awareness. Before we can manage our mindset, we have to know what it's doing. When stress hits, when we're hurt, when we feel like everything's falling apart, our inner voice kicks in, and that voice is powerful. So the first question we need to ask ourselves in a tough moment, ISOCO, what am I telling myself right now? Because if that story is filled with helplessness, hopelessness, or blame, then those thoughts are shaping our emotional and physical response. But we can shift the narrative. It's not always easy, and it doesn't happen overnight, but it is possible. We can learn to pause, step back from the initial wave of emotion, and reframe. For example, instead of I can't handle this, we might reframe it as this is difficult, but I've faced difficult things before. That simple shift isn't just positive thinking. It's building a mindset that helps you stay in the game, stay grounded, and not be overwhelmed by fear or uncertainty. Breathing plays a big role here. When we feel overwhelmed, our breath gets shallow, our body tenses, and our thinking narrows. But if we learn to regulate our breathing, especially in moments of stress, we can calm the nervous system and access clearer thinking. A few deep, intentional breaths can bring us back into the present and interrupt the spiral of panic or despair. That's not a trick. It's biology. It's using the body to influence the mind. Another powerful mental tool is visualization. When you imagine yourself handling a difficult situation with strength and clarity, you're essentially rehearsing resilience. The brain doesn't distinguish much between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. So if you consistently visualize yourself responding to adversity with calm, with purpose, with focus, you begin to internalize those responses. Then when you're actually in the fire, you've got a mental script already prepared. It won't make things easy, but it will make you more ready. And let's not forget about the power of language, especially the language we use with ourselves. The words you choose matter. Calling a challenge an opportunity doesn't erase the pain, but it shifts the focus from victimhood to growth. Saying, I'm learning instead of I've failed keeps the door open for progress. That internal dialogue becomes your foundation when the external world feels unstable. But here's something important. Mastering your mindset doesn't mean becoming emotionally numb or robotic. On the contrary, it's about becoming more connected to yourself, more attuned to what's going on inside. It's noticing the fear, the doubt, the grief, and choosing to move forward with them, not after they disappear. Emotional strength is not about being unaffected. It's about being honest with what you feel and still choosing action over paralysis. Sometimes we wait for motivation to strike before we do the hard things. But the truth is, action often comes first. When you take action, especially under stress, you teach your brain that you're not powerless. When confidence builds, that's when strength shows up. You don't wait to feel strong to act. You act to become strong. It's also crucial to remember that setbacks are part of the process. The goal isn't to never feel overwhelmed. The goal is to bounce back quicker, to recover stronger. When we can look at our lowest moments and say, there's something here I can learn, we transform those moments from breaking points into building blocks. Staying strong isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up over and over again with intention, with effort, with a mindset that says, this might not be easy, but I'm capable of facing it. And that belief, that quiet, steady belief, is often the difference between breaking down and breaking through. One of the most powerful realizations we can have, especially when we're going through something difficult, is that not everything is in our control. In fact, a large part of life isn't. Other people's behavior, the timing of events, unexpected changes, loss, chaos, these are things we often can't predict or prevent. But in the middle of all of that, there's one thing that remains yours, always your response, the way you choose to show up, the mindset you choose to engage, the actions you take, no matter what the situation looks like. When we talk about staying strong in any situation, it's important to separate what's within our control from what's not. Most of our suffering doesn't actually come from the event itself. It comes from the resistance to it, from the spiraling thoughts, from the frantic desire to fix what we can't fix. That's where a huge amount of our energy gets drained. So part of building real strength is learning how to take that energy and redirect it to where it can actually make a difference. There's something deeply stabilizing about being able to say to yourself, this part is not mine to control, but this part is. It creates a sense of clarity in the chaos. You stop grasping at everything and start focusing your effort where it matters. Let's say you're dealing with a situation that's totally outside your influence, a decision someone else made, an outcome you didn't expect. The emotional reaction is natural frustration, anger, even grief. But after that initial response, what gives you strength isn't trying to rewrite reality. It's anchoring yourself in what you can choose, your posture, your breath, your next step. And that's not weakness. That's not resignation. That's strategy. It's a decision to channel your energy in a way that keeps you effective and grounded. If you've ever been in a high pressure situation, a real crisis, you know that calm isn't just a feeling. It's a skill. It's built by practicing control over your inner world when the outer world doesn't cooperate. That kind of calm doesn't mean you don't feel things. It just means you're not ruled by them. Now, letting go of what you can't control doesn't mean giving up or being passive. It means actively accepting reality so that you can interact with it from a position of strength instead of denial. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is stop resisting and start adapting. That shift from resistance to adaptation is often where personal power really begins to grow. It helps to bring things down to a simple question. What's one thing I can do right now that's within my control? Not 10 things. Not next week's solution, just one thing. Because when everything feels overwhelming, narrowing your focus to that next controllable step can be enough to break the paralysis. It might be a conversation, a decision to rest, a commitment to move your body, or simply how you choose to speak to yourself. These small moves are the foundation of resilience. They remind your brain, I am not helpless here. There's another layer to this too. When we obsess over things we can't control, like someone else's approval or how fast something happens, we often lose sight of our values. Strength comes from choosing alignment with your core values, even when circumstances make that hard. If your value is honesty, be honest, even when it's uncomfortable. If your value is compassion, show up with compassion, even when others don't. Living from your values, regardless of outcome, creates a kind of internal stability that the external world can't shake. What's remarkable is that when we stop trying to force control over everything, we actually feel more in control. It's a paradox, but a powerful one. Releasing what's not yours to carry frees up mental and emotional bandwidth. And that space, that quiet mental room, is what allows you to be steady, creative, and present when it matters most. It's not about being indifferent or cold. It's about recognizing your limits and working with them with clarity and purpose. The wind may change direction, but your hand is still on the rudder. You may not control the storm, but you decide how you sail through it. And that, moment by moment, choice by choice, is where real strength lies. Strength isn't something we build in isolation. One of the most important and often overlooked sources of resilience is the people we surround ourselves with. When life gets hard, when uncertainty sets in, or when everything feels like it's shifting beneath our feet, the strength to keep going often comes not just from within, but from the support structures around us. And that's not a sign of weakness. It's a reflection of how we're wired. We're social beings. Our nervous systems are designed to respond to connection. When we're connected to others in a meaningful way, especially in moments of struggle, our stress response calms down, our thinking clears, and we're more capable of taking effective action. What's important here is not just having people around, but having the right people around, people who reflect back to you your best self, even when you've forgotten it, people who tell you the truth, not just what you want to hear, people who show up not only when things are easy, but when things are messy, uncertain, or uncomfortable. Having just one or two relationships like that can make all the difference in how we face difficulty. But support isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it looks like someone simply sitting with you in silence when you don't have the words yet. Sometimes it's a message that says, I'm thinking of you, or a conversation that helps you shift your perspective, or a reminder of who you are when the stress of the moment tries to convince you otherwise. These interactions may seem small, but they regulate the brain and body in profound ways. They pull us out of our own heads and remind us that we're not alone, and that reminder can interrupt a spiral of fear or doubt in an instant. Now, building a support system like this doesn't happen automatically. It takes intention. It means being open to connection even when you feel like retreating. It means reaching out even when part of you is telling you to withdraw. And sometimes it means having the courage to be honest about what you're going through. That's not easy. Vulnerability requires strength. But what often surprises people is that the moment they share their truth, they find that others relate far more than they expected. That's how real connection is formed, through shared struggle, not through perfection. And let's be clear, there's nothing wrong with needing help. In fact, recognizing when you need support and asking for it is a sign of maturity and self-awareness. We live in a culture that sometimes glorifies self-reliance to an unhealthy degree. The idea that you have to handle everything alone, or that strength means never leaning on anyone, is just not accurate. True resilience is about knowing when to rely on your inner strength and when to let someone else's strength carry you for a moment. We all have those moments. And when we allow others to support us, we also give them permission to do the same when it's their turn. There's also something powerful about being that person for someone else. Offering support, listening without judgment, being present. These things don't just help the person you're supporting, they help you too. They reinforce your own sense of purpose and connection. And in moments when you feel helpless, being able to help someone else can be an anchor. Of course, not all relationships are supportive. Part of building a strong foundation is being willing to evaluate which connections are nourishing and which ones are draining. If someone consistently makes you feel smaller, less capable, or more uncertain about yourself, it's okay to create distance. Protecting your mental and emotional space is an act of strength. You have every right to choose who you allow into your inner circle, because those voices will influence the way you see yourself and the way you navigate your challenges. Sometimes the strongest step forward isn't pushing harder. It's picking up the phone. It's sitting across from someone who sees you clearly. It's allowing someone to remind you that you're human, that you matter, and that you don't have to carry everything alone. That kind of support doesn't make you dependent. It makes you durable. So when things get tough, and they will, remember that strength isn't just about holding yourself up. It's also about allowing yourself to be held. There's this common idea that strength means waiting until you feel confident or fearless before you act. But the truth is, it almost never works that way. In reality, action often precedes confidence. Courage shows up not when everything feels certain, but when things are unclear and you choose to move forward anyway. That's where strength is forged, right there in the tension between fear and forward motion. If we want to stay strong in any situation, we have to learn to take action, even when we don't feel ready, even when we're carrying doubt, even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. One of the most effective things you can do under pressure is to keep moving, not recklessly, not blindly, but consistently. Action, especially small and deliberate action, is what keeps you from getting stuck in a mental loop of overthinking, anxiety, or procrastinating. We still too long in the face of difficulty. Our mind often fills in the silence with worst case scenarios, but when we take even the smallest next step, it sends a signal to the braining, I am not powerless here. And that signal changes the entire internal landscape. You don't need to leap. You just need to move. Think of strength like a muscle. You don't develop it by thinking about lifting the weight. You build it by showing up, by picking it up, even when it's heavy, especially when it's heavy. It's the same with emotional strength. You build it by doing the hard thing again and again in the presence of discomfort. That's what creates endurance. That's what creates capability. The more you act through challenge, the more familiar it becomes, and the less power it holds over you the next time it shows up. And let's talk about consistency. Strength isn't built in bursts of inspiration. It's built through habits, through repetition, through the quiet discipline of showing up, even on the days when your motivation is nowhere to be found, especially on those days. Anyone can act when they feel inspired, but real strength is doing what's needed when it's boring or hard or inconvenient. That's what separates those who grow from those who stay stuck. It helps to focus on your values. When the situation is difficult, your values can become your compass. If you keep showing up in alignment with what matters most to you, you can walk through almost anything with a sense of internal stability. Even if things fall apart externally, you won't lose yourself. That's a kind of strength that's not visible on the outside, but it's powerful. If your value is discipline, then be disciplined with your actions regardless of whether you feel like it. If your value is compassion, then act with compassion even when others aren't. Aligning action with values gives your effort meaning, and that meaning is what sustains you when things get tough. And it's important to understand that courage isn't about the absence of fear. That's a myth. Courage is about choosing to act with fear in the room. It's making space for fear, but not letting it drive the car. You're not waiting for fear to leave. You're acknowledging it and still choosing action. That shift in relationship to fear is critical, because fear will always be there in some form. But the more you act in spite of it, the more you realize it doesn't have to control you. There's also this quiet kind of courage that doesn't get celebrated enough, the kind that doesn't look dramatic, the courage to have the hard conversation, to keep going after a failure, to try again when you feel exhausted, to make a small but difficult change in your routine. These aren't big cinematic moments, but these are the actions that shape your character. These are the things that slowly but surely reinforce your strength from the inside out. And sometimes staying strong means showing up without a perfect plan. It means doing the best you can with what you have right now. Progress is rarely clean or predictable. But if you can stay in motion, adjusting, learning, refining along the way, you stay in the game. That's the difference between people who just survive difficulty and people who grow through it. One keeps moving forward. You don't have to feel brave to be brave. You just have to take the next step.